Hello everyone, my name is Hans-Georg Schiebel. I'm the owner and chairman of the Schiebel Group. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this webinar today. As you will agree, it has been a unique year with lots of challenges. However, we have put rigorous safety measures in place and we are globally fully operational. Although it's not business as usual, improvisation has become sort of the new normal. Schiebel has been started by my father in 1951. Next year we'll celebrate our 70th anniversary, and our experience still keeps growing, even through this pandemic. We're a team of 300 dedicated professionals working across the Schiebel Group at offices in the United States, in Austria, in the United Arab Emirates, and in Australia. Our main product, the Camcopter S100, continues to mature and to develop, which you will hear all about in this webinar today. And I'm very proud of the fact that it has been in service for over 16 years now, currently being operated by 33 customers on 5 continents. Well, yes, the journey has been tough and challenging, with lots of ups and downs. One certainly doesn't create a world-class, reliable and airworthy capability just overnight. It takes many years of hard work and can only be achieved if one continually reinvests. That's what we do. Every year we put more than 30% of the group's revenue back into R&D to ensure we continue to stay on the top and get even better. Circumstances do not permit to meet everyone in person as easily as before. Therefore, we have launched our webinar to update you all on recent successes and further developments. We are quite overwhelmed with the great interest in this webinar, with many hundred participants from over 25 countries. Thank you all for attending. Please don't hesitate to ask questions in our Q&A at the end, and certainly feel free to contact our representatives after the webinar. Well, now over to Michael Schiller, our head of programs. He will be the moderator for today. Thank you all.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Schiller. I'm the head of programs. Me and my team, we are responsible for all customers for the Schiebel Group. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar. We have more than 380 registered users today, and we are really much appreciate everything, and we are hoping that everything is a big success. Today, we are speaking to you from 4 different countries all over the world. We have South America, Southeast Asia, the UK, and Austria joining for today. So please be aware of that fact and excuse some slight delays in case there are some. So before we go into the first presentation, I would like to show you the agenda for today. And with that said, please continue to the next slide. So today, I will talk a little bit about our COVID-19 measurements that we took place in our company. Afterwards, our global head of business development, Neil Hunter, will tell you about the recent successes and operational achievements, followed by our sales director, Asia, David Peel, with capability and sensor of a multiple role asset. I will then take over again and tell you a little bit more about our new facility extension in Wiener Neustadt and our customer support and how we want to change this to the next level. Followed by again Neil Hunter about new developments and future plans. For the Q&A session, if you all look at your Zoom web bar, there is a button for Q&A. If you have any questions, just put it into this Q&A folder, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A phase. Whatever questions we cannot answer during the Q&A, we will follow up in the next days directly by our sales directors. So please don't hesitate to put in the questions there. Unfortunately, we cannot monitor the Q&A and the chat at the same time, so I already saw a few of you putting some questions into the chat. Please move them to the Q&A so that we can follow up on all of them. At the end, our CEO and Managing Director, Hannes Herche, will then do some closing notes. With that, let's jump into the first presentation. Next slide, please. So COVID-19, obviously, none of us were predicting something like this happening last year. So when the first news hit in December about a pandemic or about the virus starting in China, we at first were looking at it very much, because we are working international. We are working all over the world. So we know that something like this can have big influences to a company like ours. When after the new year and in the beginning of 2020, we saw the numbers rising even more. So that at that point we decided to bring it up to our risk matrix to see and to look and to mitigate possible risks and dangers that it is. With that in place, in about February, March, we started to build our own response team, our COVID-19 response team, that are meeting regularly, meaning every Monday, every week, to see what has changed over the weekend. Not only in our country, in Austria, governments are changing all of the requirements every week. So we are meeting every Monday to change our behavior, our own behavior, bringing in new measurements into our company to, at the end of the day, being able to produce and to deliver to our customers the satisfactory product that we have. As a good example, what we did is in the first wave of COVID-19 in Austria, when the government in Austria decided to shut down and to limit everybody's movements, what we did is we changed to everybody possible was working now from home office. We moved to virtual meetings instead of real meetings for everybody that was possible to do that. Obviously, because we are a production factory and we have a production factory, we were not able to do that for all of our employees. So what we did is we divided our production into 2 shifts, meaning that there is no mixture in between of those shifts, only working in small teams, so that if we had a positive case, and luckily we did not, if we would have a possible case in one of the production sites, then only a small group of people would have to isolate and we could still continue to produce. Like I said, luckily our measurements all came true and everything worked out so far for us. And until now, with everything that is happening in the first wave and also now in the second wave, we don't have any delays in any of the productions or any of the deliveries to our customers. Additionally, we are enabling every of our employees to do regular testings so that we can be sure that we don't bring the COVID-19 into our company and we can still continue to produce and develop for our customers. And now a short video about what we are doing and what we did. Next one.
Hello everyone, For this first main presentation, I'm going to give you a summary of some of our recent successes, and in particular, I'm going to focus on some of our operational achievements. But first, I'd like to set the scene by giving you some facts and figures. Next slide. I'm very proud to be able to say that, that the S100 is the only proven VTOL UAS in its class, coming in at 200 kilograms. How do I know this? Well, we've delivered the system to 33 customers so far on 5 different continents. We've achieved over 100,000 flying hours. Now, whilst I'll accept that's not many in the unmanned world, it certainly is in the unmanned VTOL world. To date, we've delivered in excess of 350 air vehicles to those 33 customers, and we've been lucky enough to operate on over 30 different classes of ships, from small vessels down to frigates and also helicopter carriers. We have proven the fact that we have a small footprint, and this is in both the land and the maritime domain stroke deployments. And this is not just the hardware, this is for the people as well, the number of people it takes to operate and maintain this system. You'll see from one of the next slides that we're very much a day and night operational capability. We can operate 24/7. And over the last few years, we've managed to raise our reliability and availability rates up to the 95% level. We've obviously been able to achieve this by the system itself, but also most importantly from everybody else in the background in the company, being able to provide 24/7 support to all our customers out there in the field. Next slide. Now, if we start to look at some of our operational experiences to date, this slide just gives you an indication of some of the customers that we are working with today and some of the work they are involved in. And on the next slides, I'll dig into this in a bit more detail to give you a bit more information. Next slide, please. So if we start with the Ukraine, working with one of our global partners, we have a contract with the OSCE, which stands for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The task of this contract, as you can see on this slide, is to monitor the security situation in eastern Ukraine. Our focus is to fly in areas that are difficult to reach by the ground patrol, or where the OSCE monitors themselves are restricted, threatened, or even at risk on the ground. This is very much a 24/7 operation. We fly day and night, and we fly out to a range of 160 kilometers. And so with our external fuel tank, this is evidence of the fact that we're achieving up to 8 hours in duration in this operation. It is very much a challenging operational environment, as you can all imagine. And we've had to learn how to work in a GPS denied environment. We've had to integrate new capabilities such as anti-jammer to be able to reach this 95% availability. Next slide. We've had a lot of success in Scandinavia over the last couple of years, and this slide just highlights a few of those. If we start on the left, we've worked in Finland. We've worked with the Finnish border guard on board the Turva OPV, where we've done multi-role trials in the maritime domain. Moving next to the middle picture, in Norway, we've worked with ATC and the Norwegian Coast Guard on board their icebreaker, the Svalbard, where we've conducted a number of trials and tests working in the search and rescue domain, and also in what we call the MUM-T, which is the manned-unmanned teaming area, working with manned helicopters and working together to show the utility of unmanned systems. And then again in Scandinavia, this year, some of you might have read that we achieved the first cargo delivery to an offshore oil platform owned by Equinor. And we did this in cooperation with our partner in Norway, Nordic Unmanned, which ties me into the last bullet point that we've recently created a very strong partnership with this Norwegian company, Nordic Unmanned, primarily for the EMSA contracts, which I'll talk about later. Next slide, please. Moving into a more sort of tactical area, cargo carrying. We now deliver this as a secondary role capability. This really all started last year through our 10-year relationship with Boeing in the United States, where the US Army flew the S100 in a large-scale 3-week exercise, delivering support and supplies to troops in the field in confined areas. Very successful. We then brought that capability back here into Europe, and we basically have turned it into a fully fledged commercial off-the-shelf capability. Not only do we deliver underslung loads, as you can see in these pictures, but to just reiterate, with our contract or proof of concept contract with Equinor out to the oil rig, we actually used our side payloads to deliver essential supplies. Next slide. One of our most important customers in Europe is the French Navy. We've had a relationship with the French Navy now and the DGA for, I think it's over 10 years. And we're very proud to be able to say that the S100 is fully integrated into the Dixmude helicopter carrier in France. And as evidence of the confidence the French Navy has in our capability, they recently took delivery of 4 additional air vehicles in November, so just last month. Next slide. EMSA stands for the European Maritime Safety Agency. Schiebel has won a number of contracts with this organization, and there are 2 main areas of operation that we deliver on. It's both maritime surveillance and what we call sulfur sniffing. On the maritime surveillance side, as you can see from the left-hand picture, we fly with an MX-10 in the main belly of the aircraft, and then we put what we call an ocean watch, which is a long-range camera, which you'll hear more about in a later presentation, to give a dual payload capability where we're able to fly out to long ranges and do basically ISR, so intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance in the maritime domain. We've already completed a successful land-based operation in Croatia, and there's been a second one in Finland, which has been a mixture of land and ship-based, and there'll be a number of other deployments coming in 2021. On the right-hand side, and you can see in the middle picture, is what we describe as the sulfur sniffing. As of the 1st of January this year, the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, basically put legal limits on the amount of sulfur that ships are allowed to transmit from their funnels as they go around the world. As you might imagine, a number of those, shall we say, might not meet the limits. And so EMSA is very keen to understand what ships are coming through European waters that are either inside or outside of these new regulations. So to date, we've achieved 2 successful operations. The first one has been in Denmark, flying in the Great Belt. And as we speak today, we're actually flying just outside Calais into the English Channel, the busiest shipping world in the biggest shipping channel, in the world. And we're literally flying up behind large ships, sitting in their plume and taking measurements, which can then be used in a court of law if need be. Next slide. Further afield, so we've had some recent success with both the Royal Australian Navy and the Egyptian Navy. If we start with the Australians first, again, we're very proud of our relationship with the Royal Australian Navy, and they have been the user of our our second generation heavy fuel engine, which we call the S2, and we are undergoing continuous shipboard validation with them. Also, through a relationship we have with Airbus, we've fitted what we call the deck finder system to the S100, which enables safer recovery of the air vehicle in rougher weather. And we will be hopefully conducting trials with the Australian Navy early in 2021. And these are all very much part of our ongoing OT&E activities with the Navy. And the final point I think is an important one, not just for Australia, but for other countries around the world, is we fully recognize the importance of what we call technology transfer and the importance of homegrown products. So in Australia, they have the phrase AIC, which stands for Australian Industrial Content. And so we do our best and we work closely with a number of Australian companies, particularly who make payloads, to deliver those into the Australian market. And then moving to the right-hand side, we're very proud also to have won a contract with the Egyptian Navy, and we've integrated our system into their helicopter carriers, and they are employing that capability for long-range maritime ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions. Next slide, please. Here in the UK, we've won our first search and rescue contract. We're very proud to announce that we are working with Bristow's, and I think this is a fantastic picture that shows manned and unmanned helicopters working together. So Bristow have undertaken a 2-year proof of concept contract to basically identify the value of using an unmanned UAV, particularly a VTOL that can stop and stare in not just the maritime domain. I mean, it is flying, as we speak today, it is flying over the sea, it's flying over the coast, and it's also flying over the land. And the whole idea, obviously, is to prove the utility and the effectiveness and reduce cost of using a UAV in comparison with the manned helicopters. Next slide. And my final slide in this section is to show that actually Schiebel is very diverse. We have a number of diverse customers, and this is one example of a very unique contract. We work with a company called Earthrace, who are a global humanitarian project, and they have integrated the S100 capability, as you can see in the middle picture, onto an old US Second World War tug. And they are currently in South America, Costa Rica, undertaking a humanitarian effort, and they're using the S100 to monitor illegal fishing. And they have an expansive program that will take them around the world in the next few years. Next slide.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthias Musel and I'm the Chief Flight Instructor at Schiebel. My team is responsible for the flight operations worldwide. I'm currently standing in Großmittel near our production facility in Austria. This is our flight test area where we test our latest applications and capabilities of our camcopter S100. As everyone is aware, we had quite some challenges this year. But with a strong and positive mindset at Schiebel, we were and still are globally operational. With a proper team in place, which we have, we make everything possible. We took immediate measures and precautions for our customers and employees to get an almost contactless operation, which will put us in a strong position. We flew over all Europe, which means Norway, Denmark, Finland, France and Croatia, with EMSA. We got a strong partnership with EMSA, which will lead next year to further deployments in Europe with EMSA. We also performed flight operations with the Royal Australian Navy, the French Navy, also with the Her Majesty Coast Guard in the UK, and we also performed the world's first cargo delivery to an oil and gas offshore platform for Equinor. That means we are on the big steps into the future and we are ready for takeoff.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Peel. Good afternoon from where I'm located today. Good morning and good evening to those around the world. My role here today is to talk to you a little bit about capability and some of the sensors that we have on what we believe is truly a multi-role asset. Next slide, please. One of the advantages we have for AS100 is the very small footprint. People often ask us, how big is it? How much infrastructure does it need? And the reality is that the infrastructure needed is what you see on the slide. It is the UAV itself, which weighs 200 kilograms, a couple of laptop computers, the brains behind the operation being the cube, and then the antenna, and the antenna can be of various sizes. So a very small logistical footprint that can be operated from a multitude of sites. Next slide, please. Talking about the technical specifications, Neil already mentioned that our maximum takeoff weight is 200 kgs. If we look at our empty weight of 110, and therefore we have 90 kgs to be able to use for payload, whether it be cargo or fuel. And our 57 liters that we have in the air vehicle is very important, as that will give us 6 hours endurance under most circumstances. One of the interesting things here to note also is the payload electrical power available of 1,000 watts. A lot of the sensors that are used in this environment are very power hungry. So having the ability to deliver 1,000 watts means that we can integrate a wide range of sensors and therefore have diversity and multi-role activity. And then finally, with data link ranges, we have the ability to have a data link that goes out as far as 108 nautical miles or 200 kilometers. And we also have smaller data links in the range that can actually reduce that down depending on the customer's requirements. Next slide. Some of the performance specifications, we do have a velocity never to exceed of up to 130 knots and a dash speed or a speed we can transit out to an area at 120. Some configurations will mean that we may reduce that artificially, but this is what the machine is capable of. The loiter speed, or the minimum power speed that we use in most helicopter operations, is around the 55 knot mark. And what that does is by being able to slow down to this speed, we get the best use of the fuel available. And this is where we then have our endurance will come from. Also, though, it can actually slow down to a hover if necessary. So in terms of versatility, not only can it move out to a target at a fairly respectable speed, but once there, it can loiter in that area, it can spin on the spot, it can look, it can hover, it can move at 30 knots, 40 knots, whatever is required for the particular mission or operation. If we can extend our range by putting on an extra fuel tank, and will give us up to 10 hours of endurance, but obviously with all the extra fuel there is a reduced payload. The service ceiling is 18,000 as tested, but we tend to find that most of our operations are restricted to around about the 12,000 foot ceiling. And we'll find with that we can still see everything we need to. Really interesting, though, is operating temperature range. We can go from the very cold of the Arctic to the hottest places of the desert if required. And that what makes us very versatile of where we can actually operate throughout the world. Also, with wind limits, the wind limit for takeoff is currently 25 knots. And once you're airborne, this increases to 35 knots. So again, a very good spread of ability to make the most of it. One of the important questions people ask us about is the difference between the engines, the avgas engine, and now the heavy fuel engine. And now we have a short presentation about the heavy fuel engine.
Hello, my name is Thomas Lutzer, and I'm a senior development engineer at Schiebel. I'm working here in a team in the engine development department. Schiebel made a huge step in the past to decide to develop and produce its own rotor engines, because that makes us very flexible and, of course, independent. We use rotor engines in our Chemcopter S100 because it has the major advantage of very low vibration and a huge power output combined with a small size and, of course, small weight. Over the last years, we gained a lot of experience to make our engines even more reliable, and we use the modernist manufacturing technologies to achieve a higher time between overhaul and, of course, a continuous weight reduction. This is our gasoline engine, the S1, but currently we are focused on our brand new development, the S2 heavy fuel engine. The S2 engine was designed from scratch to fit into our existing Chemcopter and to run on various kerosene types. And for the future, this is very important for us, especially for maritime operations. The S2 engine is the first heavy fuel engine worldwide in that power to ratio class and can operate from a temperature range minus 40 degrees to plus 60 degrees. And because we achieved a very low fuel consumption, it can fly more than 6 hours, and that's great.
Well, as you can see, the S2 engine is certainly a step for us in the right direction, and one that has been asked for by our customers. But the other thing that the customers keep us asking for is diversity of payloads and to be able to utilize payloads together. And the advantage that we have in the very clever design of the S100 is that we can have multiple payload bays that are complementary. In other words, we can have 50 kgs on the underbelly payload and having a very big EOIR camera, and we can still have 10 kgs in the nose of the helicopter and still allowing it to fit within the center of gravity envelope. And as I said, the design of the fuel system alone ensures that we are able to operate with diverse payload ranges as in the center of gravity envelope. So one of the real advantages for us is we have multiple payload bays that can be used for different missions at any one time. And we have the endurance to be able to do it on a VTOL-based UAV. And you'll also notice in the picture there that we have a NATO-approved or NATO hook which goes a harpoon that goes from the bottom of the helicopter, can fit into a NATO standard grid. And so if being used on board ships, it obviously gives it an extra bit of stability. Next slide, please. So whether it be maritime or civilian operations, we have plenty of operational options. Either a full stationary deployment set up at an airport somewhere or a fixed base on the coast, a mobile deployment in the back of a truck that can be moved at will and can be operated from an area that's clear, about 10 square meters. It could be a road that could be blocked off. It could be pulled into an open park, a football field, a school ground. So very versatile. Maritime operations off the back of ships, whether they be prepared helicopter decks or modified vessels that have a heli deck put on. And they can be used together with other assets. In other words, they're interoperable. Next slide, please. What do we actually mean when we talk about interoperability? Well, a very good example would be that we can take off from a fixed shore-based operation, fly out to the range of the antenna, hand over that asset or the air vehicle to another suitably equipped control station, and then it can fly out on mission. And this could be out towards a ship. It could be out from a fixed base out to somewhere in a remote area and handed over to an operation or a convoy that is suitably equipped, or it could go out and be handed over to an unmanned or a helicopter that then would control it out prior to it flying back and being handed over to its main controller again and for landing back at the base. So it is very, very versatile and can be used in many mission situations. Next slide, please. The current capability then, what do we use it for and what have we gained experience with? So primarily ISR with EO, IR, wide area sort of optics. Ground and maritime moving target indication is one. Direction finding for high frequency signals with the harpoon and deck finder landing system. We've used drop boxes on the side payload bay, as we can see in the slide here, and obviously now underslung load operations. We've done manned and unmanned teaming successfully. We can have mode 5 auto detect surveillance broadcast, ADSB, so the ability to interact with the other civilian flights and flight areas. And of course, the IFF identifying for military scenarios. So a very capable and wide-ranging use of the S100 will fit both nicely into both civilian and service environments. Next slide, please. Now, we believe that we are both very capable and efficient. And why do I say this? Well, just to give you an example, everyone wants a big endurance. So we believe that 6 hours for a standard VTOL UAV is very good. And if we looked at a standard competitor, a fixed wing, that would be able to fly for a mission sortie time of say 12 hours, if you take the ability of our sensor to detect and operate, over a 6-hour mission, we can cover approximately 5,000 square miles. Our competitor over a 12-hour mission, because of the size of the payload they could carry, would only be able to do approximately 560 square miles. If we then have an extended fuel range tank on, then we go out to over 9,000 square miles that we can actually detect, where even a lightweight fixed-wing competitor doing a standard mission at 12 hours would still only be able to cover roughly 560 square miles. So in terms of capability, we are much more capable in a much shorter time, and therefore we must be more efficient. And obviously we're excluding what does one cost over the other, but cost to operate. But if you were to do it over a period of time, I think you will find that one of the things that makes us so unique is we are extremely capable because of the multi-role capability of having multiple assets. Next slide, please. So what payloads are currently integrated and what can you use? Well, two of the EOIRs here are L3 WESCAM, MX10, MX8. And the advantage we have is we can easily carry an MX10 at 16.5, 17 kgs under the main payload bay, or we could carry a smaller MX8 in the nose payload and carry another bigger sensor in the main payload bay. So these two payloads, for example, are very versatile, but much better than something that could fit onto a small fixed wing asset. The other thing to think about here is that sometimes we have some concerns about ITAR restricted items, and the L3 WESCAM currently do a civilian version or a CMX10, which is available. So for those countries who are looking at this sort of sensor option but are concerned, we can offer you a CMX10. Next slide, please. So also another three options here with the various payload weights. And again, they are all offering good quality EOIR. And this is really down to the customer as to what their preference would be for a particular EOIR sensor. But there are plenty of options available. I would say if there was another EOIR though, that somebody wanted to use, all you have to do is ask us and we can look at how we can integrate that into the system. We're very well schooled in integrating various sensor options. Next slide, please. So we talk about EOIR detection ranges, in other words, detect, recognize, and identify. And the NATO standard is a target of 2.3 by 2.3 meters. Now, if we look at detection ranges up to 28 kilometers, 15 miles, be able to recognize at 18 kilometers, and then typically identify at 11 kilometers. And at night, obviously the one that is not widely spoken about is the identify. But even those ranges at night are very, very good. What does that look like in reality? Next slide. So here we have a typical picture from an EOIR. The air vehicle is currently just over 4,000 feet, and it is just about 14.5 nautical miles away. So when we're talking about what do we want to look and see, this is what you can actually see from over 14 miles away, even at a very low level, with one of the EOIR cameras that we can fit to our S100. And I think you'll agree that at 14 miles, we should still be able to remain undetected unless somebody has a radar. So it's a very good standoff platform that can be used in many different ways. Next slide, please. So wide area optical sensors. This is where a lot of technology is going. Currently, a company that we integrate their sensors called Overwatch have two very good sensors at a very light weight. The one that Neil mentioned earlier on and is in use on some of our contracts is the PT8 Ocean Watch. Now, this is a 3.5 kg approximately sensor, fits in the nose of our S100 and does a wide area sort of search as it goes and can cover approximately 760 square kilometers in an hour. It is amazingly good that this can detect something in the water from, as it says here, a 10-meter fast-moving boat from about 26 kilometers, and then enable the operator of the sensor to slave another sensor if required to have a closer look at what he wants to see. So it's a game changer, and there's plenty of debate out there of whether the human eye can match this in things like search and rescue scenarios. But having seen the demonstrations, I would argue that the artificial intelligence that's used will speed up any search capability that any search organization is looking for. Next slide, please. This, for me, is the real exciting part of where this technology has gone using artificial intelligence. Overwatch recently, in the last few weeks, announced their night watch capability. And having spoken to them, detection ranges in the dark are currently around 22 kilometers. And if you then take this as a day-night capability, unfortunately, you will have to switch out the sensor. But if you are operating in the night out over the ocean, the ability to detect something with this system is, I think, a game changer when it comes to search and rescue and detection for vessels in the ocean. Next slide, please. The other big requirement currently is for synthetic aperture radars, able to detect and classify targets in all weather conditions. Currently, we have two options available. The detection range is typically between 15 and 30 kilometers. One would be side mounted on the side of the UAV or the S100. And some will argue that, oh, the 28 kgs is greater than the payload we say on the side, but we obviously counterbalance this when we install this. And the other one is an under-mounted radar that can do both ground targets and maritime target indication at the same time. So you can then, because of the weight of these sensors, it's very easy to have a reasonable quality EOIR camera in the nose of our S100. So you can do both use radar and EOIR concurrently if you wanted to. Next slide, please. So we really are talking about flexibility. We had a requirement to mount a iMaster radar underneath the S100. Obviously, also want to be able to land on a ship and have an EOIR capability. And here we have a picture of that very configuration. You will notice that the S100 does look like its legs have grown somewhat, and that is by design. We had to extend the undercarriage of the S100 to be able to make it land safely in a maritime environment. And you'll also therefore see we've got a special tail extension. So flexibility is the key. You can have a maritime radar and an EOIR, have 6 hours endurance, and be able to hover and spot look if you wanted to. We believe that is extremely flexible. Next slide, please. And then finally, some additional payloads. We obviously have the ability to have AIS to look at ships and get ships data, and very popular in the maritime environment. And a lot of our customers would specify this. Also with the transponders now, the lightweight ADS-B is giving much more assurance to authorities to allow interaction with civilian airways. And then finally, we can fix antennas to do HF finding. So again, what we need to know from you as a customer or potential customer is, what do you want it to do? If you say you want it to fly for 12 hours, well, we would have to try and figure a way to make it fly for 12 hours. But if you're looking for a capability that is truly a multi-role, where you can do and have an EOIR and drop a cargo load at the same time without having to re-roll the aircraft, then we have that option for you today. All we need to know is what configuration you would want. Thank you very much, and I'd like to pass you on to my colleague now, Michael.
Thank you very much, Dave. I will now jump into my presentation about our facility extension and the customer support. Next slide, please. So in 2006, we started with our facility in Wiener Neustadt, which is roughly 45 minutes south of Vienna, Austria. The facility was then this year extended to be double the size of the original facility. So this extension happened mid of this year, and we are proud of the new facility in Wiener Neustadt, and we invite everybody to look at it as soon as you are able to come to Austria. We are around 300 employees now worldwide. Our production hall in Wiener Neustadt, as said, is now up to 7,700 square meters. Lot space and office spaces all increase The reason why we did that is to bring all of our production facility from our 2 facilities in Austria to 1 to keep all of the production ways as short as possible. Next slide, please. And this includes now also production flow optimization, meaning we are now completely synchronized from the incoming inspection at one hand side of the facility through the whole facility to the other side where we then do the packaging for the customers. What we have in our facility is incoming inspection, the warehouse, composite production that I will tell a little bit more about with the next slide, then mechanical workshops, engine development, maintenance, assembly. So all production and also necessary departments for the flight operations are sitting now in Wiener Neustadt. With also an extension of our electronical facilities and with extensions to the mechanical workshop, like 5-axis milling machines, etc., we are now more capable than ever to deliver and to produce all in time. Next slide, please. That brings me to the composite production facility. We are building our own composite since the first start of the facility in 2006. At the moment, this is a 25-man division that is producing for our S100 all of the composite parts that you see in the S100. And if you already have one, you know that there are many of those. Why? Because it's a lightweight product that can easily be changed in the form and shape that we need. And this is exactly why we have this facility in-house. Additional experience, they were able to be learned while producing parts for the Formula 1, for the DTM, and also for the Prototype 1 series in Le Mans. And now I'd like to show you a small video of our head of carbon fiber production, Andy. Next one.
Hi, my name is Andreas Ebersberger, and I am the head of composite production. We are producing the composite parts for the Camcopter S100 in-house that makes us independent from external suppliers. Now with the pandemic, it's a big advantage that we can produce our own parts in-house, and we implemented strict safety measures for our employees that we can go on with our business as usual. We are using composites because of the advantages in terms of weight and stiffness, and even supplied some parts to the LMP1 series and the Formula 1 teams, what gives us an additional knowledge and level up our quality standards. Since the extension of our facility, we get the new autoclave, as you can see in the background. With this autoclave, we doubled our volume from 12,000 to 24,000 liters. That means we can cure more parts at one time and therefore shorten our lead times.
The next big one that we are introducing this year is our new in-house metal 3D printer. So with this 3D printing, we are able to print everything out of titanium that we want to. Like with the carbon fiber, we are now very flexible when it comes to shape, forms, etc. Advantages of this obviously is topological optimization of each of our products, prototyping and production, and also bionic structure optimization of the parts. To tell you more about that, I will hand over another video from Dominic, our head of 3D printing. And after his video, there will be a second video from our head of training telling you a little bit more about our trainings facility that we also doubled this year due to the new building. And now to the video.
Hello and welcome to our high-tech additive manufacturing center here at Schiebel in Wiener Neustadt. My name is Dominic Kohl, and together with my team we are responsible for producing our 3D printed titanium parts. We opened this facility at the beginning of this very special year and are very proud to announce that we are already in serial production with our first components. The innovative 3D printing technology allows us, for example, to produce these landing gear brackets with less than half of its original weight, but simultaneously be much stronger. By the use of bionic structure optimization, we are able to further enhance the product of our Camcopter S100. At the moment, we are developing several different components in order to offer the benefits of our brand new high-tech facility here to our customers. Stay tuned and see what comes up next.
Hi, my name is Bernd Sikornik. I'm head of flight operation and training. Next to the flight operation, I'm mainly responsible for the trainings, customer trainings and internal trainings for pilots and technicians. Currently, we have more than 30 trainees in-house training on our system. We continue business as usual, but of course, due to the pandemic, we put strict safety measures in place, like the general reduction of trainees per classroom, our mandatory mask requirement, or on demand, we are even able to conduct quick tests with antigen tests. In general, I would say our businesses continue to grow. Our customers are happy to be here, to be even trained in difficult times, and I am looking forward for the next year to complete our trainings on demand.
The next slides I want to talk to you about is our customer support. As from the beginning, our customers are the high priority on our list every day. Whatever we do, customer is what we have in mind. Next slide, please. To do that, we changed our system from a standard or used to be email-based system to a web-based system where the customer is able to go in and write directly his information, their requests, etc. in the system. At the moment, this offering includes the customer support, the technical support, quality support, and inquiries. We are planning to develop this even further in the future, and today I want to show you a little bit what it can do for our existing customers. Next slide, please. So the benefits of the system and why we are using it. Traditionally, every customer had one key account manager, program manager directly connected to him. Emails were passing on from left to right, and all the information was going on via emails or our transfer server. We are doing this now, and the benefits of the new system is that the customer has a self-service portal available to him. There is a knowledge base available that I will come to a little bit later in my presentation here, and I tell you exactly what this means. The customer can track all of his services, all of the requests that he put in. The customer can get live status updates on the services. What that means is as soon as we are working on that issue, task, service that the customer put in, the customer will see where we are in the process of providing him the answer. Like moving it from we read it to we are questioning internally, we are getting the answers for you, and so on and so forth. So you see live where this information is. Service desk management, what that means is that we are now able to work with more people on one customer's questions without having to forward any emails at all. All of our program managers, all of the key account management can see all of your requests from every customers, and we can flexibly divide the workload on all of the program managers to be even able to answer faster to you and to give you a better service overall. Faster answering is the key account here. So whenever there is a program manager, cases happen where they go on vacation or any other things happening, like I said, everybody else from us is able to jump into that, take over the questions from you as a customer and provide the answers faster. It is also a way of direct communication, even though we are not using emails anymore, but you have the way to, and you can write in directly your requests. There will be a chat mode with every task that you open, where you can write directly in your questions or give additional information and get direct response from our people. And the next best thing is there is a mobile app available for iOS app in the Apple Store and on Google Play, where you can directly put in questions from your phone or wherever you are. Next slide. Now I'm talking a little bit about the knowledge base. What is that? So if when you open up the screen, when you open up the web-based application, you will see on the top of the screen the welcome and also a search bar. Inside of the search bar, you can directly search, you can directly put in your questions. Meaning, if you want to know about anything, you can put it in there. And then, as can be seen on the left-hand side, there are some possible answers for you that for these questions that you may already put in. So, for example, if you want to know where can I find the dates for the floats, for example, when they are expiring, and where can I find this on the floats themselves, you can put it in there, and there will be an answer provided to you. And this goes with all of the things that we have. The baseline for this, or the questions that we get from you as a customer throughout all of our platforms, will be put in as a knowledge base in the future. Meaning, so if we see that customers are asking the same questions once, then we will put it into the knowledge base so that in the future you can directly find the answers without having to ask any questions or write any emails at all. And this is accessible by every registered user, meaning if your operation is 10 people, 15 people, all of them will have access to this knowledge base. So there's not only one person that can get all of the information, but everybody can get this information in your operation if you decide that this is what you need. Next slide, please. The future benefits. So we are not where we are not stopping there. At the moment, like I said, technical support and also commercial support is available on this platform, but we want to extend it even further. The next steps that we are looking into at the moment is documentation services, meaning that you will be able to access this database directly, get all of your manuals, digital versions of your manuals, download from there directly, ask questions about the manuals, put in requests for additional changes to manuals, and so on and so forth. This is the next step that we are doing. And then we are thinking about an extended knowledge base that will even include more information so that you can really get all of your answers from this platform and also via our technical support. All of these services are for free for existing customers. So I'm really asking everybody that is already a customer to come join us to do this and to help and to get all of your answers from this platform. Next slide. How can you register? Like I said, if you're an existing customer, you can go to this page and just register today. After we receive your registration, the program manager will validate your data. And then you will receive an email with additional information, also with phone numbers in case you need anything more from us. With that being said, I would now like to hand over to Neil Hunter for his next presentation.
Thank you, Michael. For this last presentation of the webinar, I would like to look to the future. As we recognize that as a company, we certainly can't stand still in this market. Next slide. What I plan to cover in this short presentation is just some thoughts on what we see as potential future capabilities for the S100. I will talk a little bit about the next generation of VTOL UAS that Schiebel is working on, which is what we currently call the S300. And then for the second half of the presentation, I'm going to dig into what the company's plans and developments are over the next few years. And this will be divided into 4 areas: general, technical, compliance, certification, and airworthiness. Next slide, please. Now, as you'd imagine, in a short presentation like this, we could probably spend 2 hours talking about the various capability needs, whether that's in the land domain, whether that's or in the maritime. Having a naval background myself, it's probably easier that I look to the maritime domain as to where Schiebel goes in this area. But I do want to make the point that I have an equivalent slide for the land. So I do very much see the S100 having equal capability, whether it's over the land or over the sea. But if we look at this slide on the left-hand side, we'll see that if we look at the offshore patrol vessel market today, it is very much one of the fastest growing segments in the naval vessel markets. Some numbers I've been able to find out is that the total number of OPVs in operation today is something like 839 in 87 countries. 36 countries have a total of 167 OPVs on order, and there's another 28 countries have plans for up to another 239. You know, these are quite staggering figures, and it results in figures in the region of $60 billion US, which is an increase of something like 23% in the last few years. What's the so what? Well, the so what is that a lot of these OPVs, either they have no flight deck, they have only a small flight deck that cannot take a manned helicopter, or the countries themselves don't have enough manned helicopters to put on these large number of OPVs. So therefore, a VTOL UAV such as the S100 is perfectly suited to combine with OPVs in the future to enhance their overall capability. If we now look at the second side of the slide, and we look at the submarine market, I'm sure you're all aware that numbers are very much increasing. I estimate that 41 countries possess a submarine capability, and there are something like 450 submarines out there in the world today. And in this period of 2011 through to 2021, we've estimated that there are 154 submarines actually being procured. Again, I think quite staggering numbers. And you can see that the costs are estimated to exceed 180 billion US dollars. So again, the so what? The so what is, I firmly believe that the S100 has a role to play in the submarine market. Next slide, please. So this is just one slide that gives you a sort of an idea of the future capabilities we're looking at. And to pick up on David Peel's slides, we very much see the S100 as a multi-role, multi-domain capability. And if we start in the anti-submarine warfare area, we have started work with with 2 or 3 large primes looking at how we can adapt the S100 to deliver an anti-submarine warfare, an ASW capability. There are 2 ways that it can be done. We can either fit side payloads, as you can see in this picture, and drop sonar buoys, or also we can actually replace the main sensor in the belly and add a cable with an active sonar on the bottom, coming out of it, which is actually detachable and expendable. So very quickly, even though the S100 is still quite small, with a small payload capacity of 50 kilograms, actually it can deliver an ASW capability today. And then moving across to the right-hand side, you see the words magnetic anomaly detector. Actually, this has already been trialed in the United States on an S100, and again, will give an enhanced capability in this area. Moving to the second picture, LiDAR, light detection and ranging, is often a requirement of many people, whether that's over the land, whether that's over the sea, particularly in the shallow water areas. And we've recently won a contract in the United States to see how we can deliver an effective LiDAR capability on the S100, which again is a very, very exciting development. The third picture shows a SATCOM pod on top of the S100 rotor head. One of the beauties about the S100 rotor head is that, yes, it's made of titanium, it's extremely strong, but it is also hollow. So from day one, when it was designed, there was always the ability to actually put a sensor, a capability on top of the rotor head and pass all the, or should we say, the electronics down through the rotor head into the system itself. So we currently have a contract with, again, another large European company investigating how we turn the S100 into a SATCOM capability. We fully accept that in the early stages, we're very much looking at just command and control of the S100 via satellite, but the longer term, of course, would be to integrate data information through that data link. And then the fourth picture shows something David Peel talked about earlier, which is what we call manned-unmanned teaming. So 2 years ago, we got together with Airbus helicopters out of Germany, and we basically put a full ground control station inside the H145 helicopter you can see there. And we were able to achieve full, what we call level 5 manned-unmanned teaming. What does that mean? It means that the manned helicopter was able to launch, operate, command and control the UAV, and also receive all information, all video back into the manned helicopter, put it, shall we say, up the risk into a high risk area, into a high demand search and rescue example, and then when the task is finished, able to recover it and land it back at where it started. So, and I'm a great believer that whether it's civilian or whether it's military, manned-unmanned teaming is definitely something you will see in the future. Next bullet point I've got here is communications relay. Everyone seems to talk about comms relay. We have integrated a couple of ways of doing this, and we see this again as a growing market in the future. Delivery / last mile resupply. Both David and I have talked about this. I accept that it's early days for the company in delivering this capability, but I think it has massive utility. You know, whether it's delivering a blood sample to somebody, or whether it is carrying a life jacket that can be dropped in the water to aid search and rescue, or whether on the military side, it's literally what they call last mile resupply, which is putting essential stores into the frontline troops in a confined area. The S100 can do that as a VTOL capability. And again, I'm sure you'll see this demand rising. And now I just got one slide where we're going to talk a little bit about the S300 to tell you what the company is looking at in the future. So next slide, please. So where do we stand today? Again, we very much look into the future as a company. Our primary aim, of course, and our focus is the S100. And, you know, sort of like 80% of all our focus goes into the S100. But we also recognize that there is a future, there is a requirement for a larger helicopter UAV in the future. We call this the S300. Figures are yet to be completely finalized, but we estimate that'll come in at about a 600 to 700 kilogram maximum all-up weight, which would give a maximum payload capacity of somewhere around the 250 kilogram mark. And then as always, once you play with the payload and the fuel, we can probably get up to somewhere in the 20 hours worth of endurance with a light payload, or down at low endurance with a large payload. So again, we're very much looking at a flexible system of the future. So where have we got with the S300 so far? Well, as you can see from these pictures, we have a rotor head, we have a gearbox, and we have the gearings in place. So the transmission is now all connected up and ready to be tested. And the next steps are to perform a transmission performance and do, as you would expect, loads and vibration assessment. And then slightly longer term, we'll start to look at reliability modeling, and then further out, obviously, some of the more important aspects such as ILS, integrated logistics support, and the maintenance requirements. And before you ask in any of those questions, we very much have what I would call technical milestones, but we have yet to say when the S300 will reach the market. We want to get it completely right before we actually announce it onto the market. And it's essential we take all the lessons from the S100 into the S300 and bring, so we're right. One of the beauties, of course, is that we'll be able to use a lot of the lessons we've learned on the S100, a lot of the hardware, a lot of the software, you know, the idea of a common ground control station, all those aspects will be brought into the S300 when it's ready for the market. Next slide, please. I'll now move on to the sort of the company side of things, moving away from sort of capability and sensors. The first statement here is our mission statement, and I wondered whether I should put this up or not, but actually I think it really shows everybody out there in the market, you know, the intent of the Schiebel Group of where we are today and where we want to be in the future. You know, we very much see ourselves as creating a certifiable system that continues to maintain its technological advantage, but also looking to partner, as we do already, with the best technology providers and partners that are needed out there today. We very much need strong partners to achieve our ultimate aims. The first bullet point talks about the size of the VTOL UAS market. Now, we all read lots of reports. We all have different views on this. Here's just a couple that I've found. You know, one report suggests there's 498 million US dollars has been spent on the VTOL market up to 2019, and this will rise to 3.6 billion US dollars by 2030, which gives us a growth rate of close to 20%. I read another report that suggests actually by 2030 we could be up at 9.8 billion US dollars. Now, of course, none of us here know the truth. We don't know how realistic this is, how true this is, but I think what we do all know and we all recognize is actually the market is most definitely growing, and it definitely has quite a steep growth path. So we know that we are on the right market, but we also recognize, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, that we can't sit still. We have a lot of work to do. However, I do think we do have what we call USPs, which is the unique selling points. Actually, I don't want to talk about the payload capacity that we carry. Of course, that is unique to us. But actually, I think in the market today, something like Mr. Schiebel said at the beginning, we have been doing this for 16 years, which means our maturity and the reliability of our product, I do believe, is one of our significant USPs. We don't get here overnight. It has taken many years to get here, but I also accept that we're still evolving and we are still developing. This takes me on to the next bullet point, and shall we say, industry is not always very good at listening to its customers, and I'm sure we still have lessons to learn, but I can guarantee you that we have been listening to customers and we continue to listen to you, as well as what the global market needs and its requirements. So what does that mean then? Well, it means that we must change, we must adapt as the customer changes, as the customer grows, as he gets more experience, and also as the market changes. And what does that then mean? Well, it means that our focus has to be on efficiency, it has to be on our effectiveness, and most importantly, it has to be on value for money. And I put whole life cost because that's really what it comes down to. It's not just the procurement of the system, it's the whole life cost through the whole life of the system, which we would hope would be somewhere around the 20-year mark, maybe even longer. Again, so what does that mean? That means that we as a company, we must deliver capability at a reasonable price. And if we can do that, we can truly then say that we're delivering a multi-role and a multi-domain system stroke capability. And that means both in its primary and its secondary roles, whether that's ISR in primary or whether that's cargo carrying in its secondary. That's up to you to decide. Also, the world is changing. We recognize the importance of certification and regulatory compliance. And my final bullet point here is a company as a whole. Of course, we're an OEM manufacturer first. Our priority is very much in that area. But actually, over the last few years, we've seen the value and the importance of managed services. And I've given you an example earlier of EMSA, the European Maritime Safety Agency, which is a very significant managed service. So yes, we're an OEM, but again, we see the value of being involved in managed services, but I think I would accept that's not our priority. Next slide, please. Moving on to the technical, I mentioned this already, whole life costs. What does that mean for us as a company? Well, it means having better reliability, better availability, and better maintainability. And we work very hard on that. Mean time between failures. In the UAS world, I would still argue it's still quite an immature world, but actually a lot of time and effort is going into increasing what we call the MTBFs on all the components. And then on engine maintenance, the sort of the panacea, the Achilles heel of UAVs, whether it's been fixed wing or rotary over the last few years, we could argue is engine maintenance, and we fully recognize that fact. And we also understand that our TBOs, our time between overhauls, is probably lower than it needs to be at the moment. And again, we're putting a lot of energy into that area to increase those figures. And again, as Mr. Schiebel said right at the beginning, I do want to emphasize the fact that we're an owner-led company, and he makes a decision every year to put up to 30% of our revenue back into the company. And nearly all of that money goes into developing, or shall we say, maturing this area of whole life costs. Some other aspects just to pick up on, upgraded primary data link. You'll see that coming in next year. We recognize the importance of EMI, EMC, the electromagnetic interference, and obviously its compatibility. And we have lots of ideas of how we're going to work with that. And one example is making the main fuselage a Faraday's cage. I, for one, see the long-term future that companies such as ours will sell probably just the aircraft with its payloads attached, and how we will have to connect into a common data link and a common ground control station. And we are working on that. It's all well and good looking to the future, but we fully recognize that we must always be backward compatible to our current customers. And again, that is a focus. And as you've heard about through the majority of this webinar, new sensors and capability will of course remain a technical focus for us. Next slide. Compliance, just a few points here. Again, I sort of said it already, but I think again, we recognize as a company that the days have gone of just UAVs pitching up and sort of flying in any way they want. You know, the global regulations are actually developing very fast, whether it's the FAA in the States, CAA UK, EASA in Europe, the Asian and the Australians. Everybody is now putting a lot of attention into global regulations, and we are following those and obviously working to be compliant. And just a couple of examples, everybody talks about STANAGs, and we're working hard on 4586, 7085 as two good examples of where we are semi-compliant now and will become fully compliant very soon. Next slide. And then finally, certification and airworthiness. Again, as part of a long road, or sort of a roadmap of a program, about a year ago, we instigated a program that we've called the Capability Upgrade Program. This is basically taking the S100 of today into the future. So it's looking at both hardware and software, and the strategy, the plan of the CUP program is to create a certifiable system. We will never say it's a certified system because every country has different requirements. They see certification in a different way, but our aim is to create a certifiable system that will be accepted, I hope, by a majority of countries around the world. And one of the stepping stones of that CUP program is our work with the EASA, the European Air Safety Agency. As some of you might know, they have now what they call the Light Unmanned Certificate. And I believe, well, we will actually be awarded our certificate by the end of this year. And I believe certainly in our weight class, we'll be the first to achieve that in Europe. Turning to our customer base, actually, we're already taking forward certification programs. And we have one customer today who is already working us, where he is taking the S100, shall we say, from an experimental use into an operational scenario when it comes to permits to fly. And then my final point is, yes, everyone's different. Every time we go to a new country with EMSA, we need to get approvals and we need to get permits to fly. We've achieved, as I said earlier, presentations, quite a few of those. And in fact, we've never been declined a permit to fly in any of these countries so far, which takes me back to my USP, which is I do truly believe that we have a reliable and mature product today. Slide. That's me. Thank you very much. And I'll now hand you back to Michael for the final part, which is our Q&A session.
Thanks, everybody. So now to the next step of our webinar today. We will talk a little bit about the questions that you all put into the Q&A screen. So I will read out the questions, and Neil, Dave, and I will try to answer them live here on the stream. If your question is not coming up, sorry for that, but we only have a specific time frame for that. So I tried to pick out questions from all categories. It will be a little bit up and down, I guess, but we will all see how that works out. Starting with the first question, why can't the S100 be controlled by satellite data link? Neil, I believe you said that in your presentation.
Yes, I did. You've seen that we've already won a contract to work on that area as SATCOM. I mean, I would argue today that with antennas that take us out to 200 kilometers, we very much have what they call a beyond visual line of sight capability already. But actually, we recognize that in the future, us as other UAVs will probably need to have a SATCOM capability. And so, yes, as you saw in my presentation, we're starting to work on that capability today.
Second question. Hello all. Capabilities sound great, but I know a VTOL is more expensive. Is it worth it?
I'll do that one as well. I mean, with a helicopter background, you know, I think if you look at the manned helicopter world today, a helicopter will always be more expensive in its whole life costs than a, we say, equivalent fixed wing capability, and we can never get away from that fact. So I think we have to recognize that. Obviously, as I said in my presentation, our aim is to get our whole life costs as low as we possibly can. And of course, over time, you're able to achieve that. The more you mature your product and the more the lessons you learned. But I think, it'll always be more expensive. But if you're going to spend more money, then why? But I think, and hopefully we've demonstrated during this presentation, that one of the beauties of a helicopter UAV such as ours in this weight class of around 200 kilograms is the number of different payloads that we can actually put on the system. So yes, you might pay more money, but actually you're going to be able to carry 3, 4, 5 different payloads doing different jobs at the same time. And that's where you get your value for money.
Connected question to that. I think Skelda V200 has comparable specifications. Why do you say you have the only proven 200 kilograms maximum takeoff weight VTOL UAS? And what are the big advantages compared to the Skelda?
Well, firstly, it's for UMS Skeldar to talk about their own capabilities, or rather than us to talk about theirs. I accept that we're both in the same market. We both come in at around the 200 kilogram mark. We both have comparable capabilities, of course we do. But I think if you go back to my very first slide of the presentation and you see the number of customers that we've achieved, the number of flight hours we've achieved, the number of decks that we've operated from, and what we've achieved with all these different payloads, then that's why I'm proud to be able to say that we're probably at the front of this market. But of course we have competitors, other companies that have capabilities that you know can compete against us, rightly so. Competition is good for the market. The UAV market in the past has suffered a little bit from not having enough competition. So we recognize and want competition, but I think we are very proud of our achievements and what we've achieved so far. And of course, our aim is to maintain that position in the market.
Thank you. Next question. Good morning. What buying options are available? Lease, or to buy, or outright buy? I think that's the fast one.
I'll keep going, and then I'll hand some of them to Dave in a minute. As I said during our presentation, we very much see ourselves as a manufacturer, you know, as an OEM, which stands for an original equipment manufacturer. So our primary aim is to build systems and to sell systems, and that's where we spend the majority of our focus. However, we also recognize that, you know, everybody is different. There are different markets, different requirements. So we have got involved in the leasing market, and there are a couple of customers, I won't tell you who they are, but yes, we have got involved in the leasing market, and that can be arranged. So, and we do talk about both wet lease and dry lease. So a wet lease is where we offer the capability with its people. A dry lease is where we just offer the capability for a customer to use its own people. That's all about comparisons of risk and how you do that. And then we obviously can do managed services ourselves. So yes, there are various business models. And again, we're no different from the rest of the market, how it sees that. But I think I would come back and say, we see ourselves as an OEM. Our primary task is to sell our systems to customer and then give, as you said in your presentation, whole life customer support during that period.
Dave, a question to you about new sensors. Are you looking into phase array maritime search radars?
I think I'll pass that to Neil, if that's okay. Yeah.
As you saw from David's slides, we have already integrated the Thales iMaster. Thales iMaster obviously started its life on the Watchkeeper fixed-wing UAV, which is the British Army's latest generation. But Thales obviously recognized the importance of taking such a formidable radar into the maritime domain. So over the last, I'm not sure exactly, but over the last few years, they've created a maritime version of that radar. So today, it can do what they call GMTI and MMTI, so ground moving and maritime moving target indication. So far to date, we've integrated, tested and proven that the Thales iMaster, which is a 360-degree coverage maritime radar. And so I think there is a capability in itself. But actually, if you look to the market of what some of the other companies are doing, and as you saw, we've worked with Leonardo on the PicoSAR. They obviously have radars such as the Gabbiano and the Osprey radar designed for the maritime market and designed for UAVs. I believe the Osprey can either be phased array or it can be a 360 rotating. Maybe need to be corrected on that. So again, I think there is opportunity for both sorts of radars to be used either in the land domain or in the maritime domain. So there are enough manufacturers out there today, and excuse me if I haven't mentioned quite a few others that I should know. There are a number who are offering both ways of doing radar detection.
The next question, I believe I can answer. Good morning. In your processes, do you use the ASD standards 1000D, 2000M, etc. Simple answer, yes, we do. We are on all of the panels when it comes to writing the standards themselves, so on the 10,000 panels. We have been implemented the S1000D about, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So we are already working with that for a longer time. 2000M, 3000L is what we are doing. So simple answer, yes. Next question would be, I had S300 looks interested. When will it be available? And connecting question to that would be, which markets are we focusing the S300 on?
The answer to the first part is I've already answered that in my presentation. We are not setting a market date at this time, because as soon as we do that, we have to stick to it. And I think, as I said, our focus today is very much on the S100. So yes, as you can see from my presentation, we're putting time, energy and resources into the S300. The only milestones we've set as a company to date are technical milestones, which are internal to the company. And once we have a better idea that everything is as we expected, then we'll start to think about when we bring that to the market. But I think, in all honesty, that has to be somewhere between 2, 3, 4 years away yet.
Dave, how would Schiebel see the collaboration with the Asian Pacific defense industries?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We are trying to push very hard into the Asia market in particular, and trying to work with local partners to be able to develop their capabilities. There's obviously some challenges around that, but we just need the countries themselves to come and talk to us and see what collaborations would work for them. So it's really is us trying to get the contacts in there to sell the capability of the S100, and then for those local regions to tell us what additional things they need and how we can work closer in collaboration with them. But it will always be a challenge trying to find the right people to talk to. So if you know anybody out there that wants to talk to us, please give me a ring or send me an email and we can start a dialogue.
And I think I will add to that is that something I said in one of my presentations is we fully recognize, again, shall we say, the world is changing. When it comes to creating content, technical content value in a country, where that's the same all over the world now. So when we, for example, are working in Southeast Asia, we know that we have to deliver technology transfer into those countries, and we know that we have to probably integrate component sensors that are made in those countries. In other words, it's simple to bring jobs to those countries. So we recognize the importance.
So the next question is actually a bunch of questions that I'm trying to combine, because I saw many people asking about ship operations and how we integrate the S300 and S100 into ships. So first there was the question that I saw several times about can you control, where can you control, etc. So our system is completely integrated into ship, meaning that you have your control station inside of a room, control room, C2 room that you have, and you can fly the aircraft from the backside of the ship. Pilot control would be operated in one of the laptops, or other operation on the flight deck is a question. Both actually. So you are sitting inside of the control room where you have direct control, but you can also have direct control on the flight deck itself for takeoff and landing. So there are several possibilities that depending on the ship. Another question was about, is the operation fully remotely piloted, or is it also semi-autonomously flying involved, or in the future? Do you want to answer that, or should I?
I mean, I'll quickly take it. It's probably about to run out of time, aren't we? I mean, it's a fully automatic system that has degrees of autonomy. And for example, in the maritime domain, yes, it can do fully automatic takeoff and landing. We talked about earlier about the deck finder system, which enhances its capability and reduces risk. But yes, it's an automatic system with degrees of autonomy.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the time is already up. So like I said, unfortunately, we don't have time for all of the questions, but later on, all of your questions will be answered by our sales directors directly. So you will see that with the email that you registered for this webinar. Thanks, everybody. And before we close up, I want to hand over to our CEO and Managing Director of the Austrian companies, Hannes Hecher. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. My name is Hannes Hecher, and I'm CEO of Schiebel in Austria. Many thanks to the Schiebel team for giving us such an interesting and insightful overview on our activities and future plans. Yes, this has been a challenging year for all of us, but as you've heard, we have adapted quickly to the new situation and are going strong as always. There is one thing left to say. Thank you all for attending the Schiebel webinar, and please feel free to contact our sales directors. Their contact details will be in the follow-up email you will receive today. I'm wishing you all the best, happy holidays, and a successful new year. Thank you and goodbye.